Hey, everybody, we are live at the Cavadium Coffee Shop. My guest is Diana Schieke.
Hello.
So Diana and I talked a little while back, and I think it was early in March or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So we thought it'd be fun to have her back because since that time, a lot has changed. We've been through a lot, and so we have a lot to talk about. If you're just joining us, we are live. We're going to be talking about the rabbit holes that we can all go through. And we are live in person at the Cavadium Coffee Shop in St. Charles, Illinois, and live on Facebook. And thank you so much for joining us. I'm going to wait for a couple people to come in. It's a blustery evening here, so be hard to eat outside, I think, for a lot of people.
Windy,
yeah. So if you're just joining us, we're still kicking here at the Cavadium Coffee Shop, and we're going to get started. So, hi, Diana.
Hello.
Welcome to Still Kicking.
Thank you.
Glad to see you're still kicking.
I am. Thanks for having me.
I'm still kicking. Yeah. Is Diana loud enough? Can you tell? Just a little bit, or scooch in a little bit. Hi. Welcome. We're live. Yeah. All right. So we're going to talk about the rabbit holes today. But I listened to our podcast this week, and one of the things that stood out to me was that you said that your spiritual path was kicked off by your dad telling you constantly that reality is not what it seems, and that kind of led you toward a questioning path.
Right.
And I'm wondering, because that's obviously kind of must have played into your experience of this time. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. So it was definitely something he would say, that a lot of the things that we experience and we see in so-called reality was in fact the opposite was true. And I remember always finding that strange. And when you're young, you're learning things the way they are, and you're glad when you got that down. So you don't want to question everything. You just want to get that right. And so very early on, I learned to pretty much question everything. And he was somebody who would, so he would just start with nutrition, for example, and he would tell me all the lies within the realm of nutrition and all the things that they were promoting and telling us to eat, but that were in fact unhealthy. And so that's kind of how I got started with that. But it took me years to actually see what he was talking about. So I was very young when he was saying these things, and too young.
Yeah, because not to mention, like to have your parent telling you something that like reality is not what it seems, like that's intense.
It's scary. Yeah. And I didn't, thank goodness I didn't listen to it too much. I was too busy, being a kid. But it's scary and it's confusing. And now I know it's true, but I'm old enough to live with that and live comfortably with that.
Yeah.
Or it's true often. And so back then that was kind of unsettling. And it was, I remember thinking like, oh, what's he talking about again? But then bit by bit, the things that he was saying turned out to be true. Sometimes it took 10 years for it to get to everybody, but he told me things. For example, he told me like, don't use sunscreen. It's really bad for you. And I said, come on. That's what we need to wear sunscreen, the chemical one he was talking about, obviously.
Yeah.
So that we don't get, he said, it's healthier to just stay out of the sun and not wear sunscreen than wear it and go out,
Yeah.
And maybe, I don't know, 20 years later, it came out that yes, these sunscreens are super full of toxic chemicals and you shouldn't be using that.
Yeah.
They're dangerous.
Throughout the years, you've told me a bunch of things that your dad told you a long, long time ago. Yeah. And it was like, whoa. I mean, he was ahead of his time, even back then.
Yeah.
I feel like.
Yeah.
Did he have like people that he had, and did he have like a little tribe that he could speak to about these things?
Well, there was no internet back then, so
Okay.
not really. It was, I mean, I guess he had some literature and maybe a couple of quirky people from the health food store, but that's about it. Um, I remember he used to say, "You have to use your common sense. You know, use your brain. Don't believe everything that you're told. Think." Another big thing was this was like in the 80s. He told me like never eat margarine. It's really bad for you. And I'm like, Dad, you got this wrong. Because listen up, margarine is heart healthy, and butter's really bad for you. You know,
Yeah.
and that's what everybody. I mean, it must be true. That's what everybody is saying. And of course, 20 years later, it's like, oops, trans fats.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry about
Yeah.
that. But
I'm
that's
super excited to be digging into this topic because I think it's so relevant for all of us. And I just want to shout out to Kathy's joining us. Good to see you. And I also, if I could ask if anybody wants to join me in sending out some healing energy to my friend Krista, from our hearts to your heart. Hope you're doing well. So let's talk a little bit about how this COVID experience has been for you, because I remember that you were telling me that your way of experiencing the world and learning is through your connection to people, your friends, and people who are in your community. And so I can't imagine that this must have been very easy for you if you weren't able to do that. What was your experience?
um, yeah, absolutely. That was for me really tough. Not being able to see people really anymore, not be able to go out anymore, having that notion that everybody should be afraid of me and I should be afraid of everybody. And that was kind of taken away the way I know to live, the way I understand life, the way I feel my way through things is through people. I'm not a big nature connector, unfortunately. I'd love to be, but I'm just not. I'm a person, a people person.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how I live, and so to take that away is for me very difficult still to navigate. I'm getting used to it for
Yeah.
sure. Um, and you kind of narrow your people a little bit. You find ways to make it work, but for sure that's something that I don't know is really the nature of people.
Yeah.
I mean, my husband, for example, he has no problem at all. For him, that was never his big thing to connect to others. So he's fine, but for me, it's difficult
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
sure.
I think it is something that is really individual. I know I was talking to my son, and he lives in the UK, and they had like a really long lockdown, and he was living by himself, and there was nobody in his town that he knew because they had all gone away because he lives on at a university. So they had all gone back to their homes, and he had to stay because he was in the middle of a visa process. And just like being alone, absolutely and completely alone for months on end. And then they had a loosening, and then they had a backing off of that. And he said like the second part of it was even harder than the first part. And I think he too is, he's super social, and yeah, it was really difficult. So can you? So we're going to talk about rabbit holes, and we're not going to get into like the details of how many of the specifics of what's in the rabbit hole. We're going to talk about the experience of getting in the hole and getting out of the hole. So how would you define a rabbit hole? What do you think of when I say that term?
For me personally, a rabbit hole is when you go in with the intention of figuring a few things out, and you go online or you go and research and you dig and dig, and it gets deeper and deeper and deeper. And at one point, it gets to the place where it's bewildering, confusing. There's so many more layers and layers and layers to the story, and more information and new information. Usually, when you get down to the bottom of it, it's something scary. It's some power trying to be malicious, something dangerous, something bad. And that's kind of for me what a rabbit hole is.
Yeah. I want to say too that a rabbit hole they did not originate in the era of COVID. Like there's always been rabbit holes.
Oh, yeah.
And but now there's so many, and we don't have a lot to do. So the the internet is there, the information is there. So we tend to go digging. And also, I want to say that it's kind of like our responsibility. We're citizens, we're parents, we're business owners. That we have to know what's going on. You want to be informed, and then somehow the groove gets worn into the rabbit hole, and you're suddenly on a spiral.
Mhm.
And one of the things that I think about when I think about a rabbit hole is that the it's not for me necessarily that the information is bad or what I'm learning is bad. It's that it either becomes overwhelming, and I no longer have a sense of clarity and peace with the subject. So it becomes overwhelming. And then that kind of generates the fear, like the not being able to know. And I remember early on, I wrote a post about this. And at the time, I was really grieving the fact that the truth can't be known to us right now, anyway. There's too much information coming from too many sides. We don't have the ability to know what's true and what's not if you're listening to what people are telling you. And that's really sad. But then I started thinking about it today, and really that's always been the case. We've always been reliant on people to tell us what is up. And it's only, like the truth of any subject can only be known from within, right? Like you still have to decide what is true and what is untrue for you.
Mhm.
So I don't know. It's almost like the discernment knob has to get turned up to 110 right now. Like it's like I said, won't go anymore. I need some 10W40 or whatever that stuff's
And
called.
there are just so many layers to it too.
Yeah.
There's so many, and then different people see it from different viewpoints, right? Everybody has a different experience of life, and so that's how they experience this whole thing. And so then they're bringing in what seems true and important to them, and they are as well, seeing this whole scenario from complete different eyes. It's interesting to see what people care about and how they perceive life, but it's also bewildering and confusing. And I think to find out the truth, that's kind of something we can't do right now.
Yeah. So what were some of the rabbit holes that tripped you up?
In general or now?
In both. Like let's start with general and then go to the specific.
So in general, the one with I would say when I went on this journey to figure out health and nutrition, and that's to say that already is so difficult. What's healthy, what's not. Some people say, everything vegan is healthy, and somebody else says, you have to eat meat products all day long, and heart and lungs and
liver. And it's been such a moving target too.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So it's impossible to say what's healthy and what's not. There we have it, the truth, right? What's the truth? But kind of when you go down and deeper, at one point, nutrition turns out to be kind of like political, and it depends on who's growing what, when, what's subsidized, what are people pushing to be eaten and for what reason, and then it goes down to who is deciding what we should eat and why, and how are animals fed, and that. So it's kind of it turns at the end. I've noticed it turns out to be something. There's a power that controls. And that's usually when I turn away.
So is that sense of like a power that's in control? Is it like the powerlessness that causes the fear for you personally, or why would you turn away at that point?
I turn away at that point because then I always get to a point around, you go round and round and round, and then I always turn to self at the end and decide for myself that I don't care what anybody says anymore. I have to look within. I have to be as in tune with myself as I just can be, and then make decisions from there. If they're true or not, if they're right or wrong, I don't care at that moment. I'm doing this for myself, and as long as I'm not hurting anybody, I'm making decisions for myself. And there is something inside that will guide you there and will bring you to the right place if you can connect. And it's always been, I've always had a lot of, I've been lucky in that case that I've been able to figure out what was right for me, and it makes sense to me, and so it is. And so you have to detach at one point. There's no other way.
Yeah. I want to say hi to Jen in Florida. Thank you for joining us. And Karen and Felipe and Abby and Carolyn and Mary. Thanks to you guys for tuning in. We really appreciate it. And I want to, Matthew Patty, my friend Matthew Patty made a comment that I want to just read. He said that all rabbit holes contain truth. However, our conscious or unconscious bias augments our understanding of what the real truth is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
Absolutely.
Like your lens, right? Yeah. So I think one of the rabbit holes that always trips me up, regardless of what the subject is my kids.
Okay.
So anything that when this kind of all started in March, my hey Ziggy, my daughter was in London, and she was her school was canceled, and she was trying to make her way. First it was Italy, then it was Spain, and then those got shut down. So she stayed in London, but she was trying to get home, and we were trying to get her home, and she was sick. And I all I could picture was that she's going to be holed up in some London hotel by herself for who knows how long. She's sick. She doesn't know where the doctors are. She's going to be ordering room service for 6 months, in London. That might be expensive. And it was just like, that was, and then she finally did get a flight home. And then when she arrived at O'Hare, she spent 6 or 7 hours in customs, shoulder to shoulder with 2,000 other people. And it was just such an intense experience. So like anything like that, like my kids, if something's going on, then I'm gone. And I think like for a lot of moms, anything having to do with your kids can be a rabbit hole.
Absolutely. And what would you say, in what way is it a rabbit hole in terms of like you're going down in the depths of or delving into that?
Yeah, that's a little bit different. I don't know if I guess that might not be exactly a rabbit hole, but I would, like I would let my mind
spiral.
My mind would spiral down. Yeah, so all the scenarios of what could happen and how bad it could be. And that was really kind of my experience early in COVID, was how big is it going to get? How bad is it going to be? And then, the mind like whoosh, going. Yes. So, we have the tools to work with that, but you still get trapped up in it.
And surprisingly, I would have thought I wouldn't have been as wrapped up in it as I was, or as fearful as I was, not of the virus at all. I think they told us about that virus, and like an hour later, I texted you, and I was like, oh, come on, there's something fishy going on here, right? And you're like, yep. So from the beginning, I felt like something's not quite right there, But for sure, I thought, living in the past 10 years and all the work that I do in terms of just finding a peace and a way to live, the stuff we all do, the yoga and the meditation and the books and the all of those ways of seeing life from a different side, that I thought that would, because I was always so cool and calm. It didn't matter what would what happened. I was always, but this time no. And I was so surprised about myself and about how much fear there is, but not of the virus, of the rabbit holes.
Yeah.
Maybe because of what I had lived with my dad. He was very cautious. He was talking about the Civil War that everybody's talking about now. He's talking about that 10 years ago, or 12 years ago. He was even preparing for it. I mean, I don't know where he got all these things, but he knew there was going to be some political mayhem at one time.
Yeah.
And I guess that's what.
Yeah. He was from the future.
I don't know. It's just amazing. Everything he said and did came true.
Yeah. You know, one of the ways, and if you guys have any questions, just, you know, let us know. And also online, if you guys have any questions, type them in and we'll talk about it. One of the ways that I know that I'm in too deep is when I feel like an urgency to tell other people, and so that they know, or that, you know, that like I need to change someone's behavior. So when I start feeling that constriction of the urgency, I know I've gone too far, because in the end, I'm responsible for my actions, my thoughts, what I'm creating in the world. Like, do I want to create an energy of that frenetic thing where you're telling other people what to do, or you feel the need for others to agree with you, or you feel that your position is right and theirs is wrong? And yeah, that's when I know, like,
it's okay. I usually know when I feel bad. I feel crummy and I feel jittery and a little anxious and I can't sleep. Then I know this isn't good. And it's kind of difficult to navigate, because just because something is uncomfortable doesn't mean it's wrong. And when you're going through what we're all going through right now, which is super difficult, I think we all feel bad sometimes. But this is more, and sometimes you need to say what you need to say and do what you need to do. But for some reason, it's kind of like a feeling of it's unhealthily uncomfortable, and so that's when I know to back off. And it seems a little cowardice, because it's always so, it turns into non-political, right? But I think non-political for me is the way to go, because it's just becoming very sticky and icky.
Yeah.
And I never thought it was political, but then what I felt and thought about the virus and the mask wearing and the social distancing just happened to be in line with a political thought, group. And so I kind of was sucked into that, but it was never political, and I could.
Yeah, I mean, when you're going through something really difficult, it's really tempting to want to align with others, because it's scary, you know, like you're, you know, you don't know what the right thing is. And that alignment is kind of like it's like a panacea, you know, it's like a Band-Aid on it. It takes your fear away a little bit. There's power in numbers, but
it's hard to do the black and white thing.
Yeah.
It's hard to, I mean,
it doesn't really serve us, really.
Yeah, but, and I always wonder about that when you think about all the things on the one side and the other. I mean, all of us must be thinking, I agree with that. I don't agree with that. I'd agree with that. And I agree with that. So they're like, how can you disagree with everything on one side? That's just, how can that even be possible?
Yeah. So, okay. So what do you usually do when you find yourself in a little bit too deep? What's the solution?
So I take off all the social media off of my phone. I take all the, the little icons. I delete all that. That is usually a very nice feeling. I take a step back from all of the online stuff for a while. I journal. I've noticed journaling helps me a lot. I whipped out.
How does it help you? How does journaling help you?
So that's my definite tool to get in tune with myself, is journaling. That works for me like a charm every time. I don't do well with meditation, especially not if I'm anxious, so that doesn't work. Yoga, sure, that kind of where you get into your body, that kind of stuff too. But journaling is my number one thing. And then I whip out a good book. Usually it's something like Mark Nepo. He's got this book, The Book of Awakening, where you just read a passage every day. I think that's what it's called.
Yeah.
And that's so, oh God, that calms me down. That's so awesome. And so that kind of stuff gets me out of there. And I'm then totally concentrated on my family and my good friends.
Yeah. What I have a number of different tools. I think writing it's particularly effective at moving the energy from within to outside. Like the paper holds the energy of that. in some weird way. Just like the expression, it's an expression of it, but you don't have to say it to anybody, so it kind of diffuses the intensity of the energy. But when I need to crawl out of the rabbit hole, I tend to like pull back and get really basic about stuff, like lunch and coffee and toast and a phone call with a friend or one of your kids or a walk, just like something. Prayer for sure is in the like the simplest prayer, just like just like help. too much.
Or like using your senses heightened, like listening, sit, listen,
Yeah.
or
Yeah, really
touch.
like drawing the bigness of your universe into the smallest basic structure. So first the self, just like, look, I am okay, I'm healthy, I'm calm, I have a roof over my head, I have something to eat, and like for now that's enough. And I don't need to know anything else. Do you guys have any tools that you use on the regular that we haven't mentioned?
I think all of those. I like to walk outside without my shoes on.
Okay, so Alexa's here and she's talking about grounding outside, especially without her shoes on, which is excellent. Hi to Cristobal and Jackie, and Matthew has another super interesting comment. The shadow truth is like a rising damp coming to the surface to be faced as a collective. Ah! Thank you, Matthew. Yes, simplicity, Jen. Yeah. So let's see. What's, if you guys online can maybe type in some of the things that you guys do to come out of the rabbit hole, or what your experiences are, we can kind of play off of that. You said that in our podcast that you try to teach your children to I think you said to step away from fear as much as possible. Can you talk a little bit about that as a practice?
So we were just talking about that the other day, and I think a lot of people are saying that. What is going on with our kids? Like, why is everybody so anxious? And what is everybody so afraid of? And so my son, he's 18, he said, Mom, I think it's social media. I think we're all whipped up about that because we, the things we see, everything's so fast, and it's all connected, and you have to be careful what you say and how you say, post this, post that. And maybe he's right. I mean, that's one big difference between when I was a kid. So that could definitely be it. Fear, yeah. I try to take a lot of that away from them by maybe doing, I don't know if this is right or not, but there's so many things right now going on in society where parents push their kids a lot. I feel like they push their kids to have good grades, and they push their kid, to be fearful of not getting into college and not, being able to get a job and not. So I kind of tell my kids, if you got a C, then you got a C. It's fine, so kind of to take that pressure away, not only with grades, but just with all things, like I try to be overly cool about things because everybody's overly anxious about things right now.
Yeah, I think that's one of the blessings, really. I mean, my kids are not homeschool, age kids anymore, but I can't, God bless you, moms.
Right?
So, yes.
Oh my God,
I don't know how I would have done that with 4 kids at home. So, oh my gosh. But I do feel that that's one of the blessings of COVID has been that the expectations have been lowered dramatically. Like if you can just get up and, do the minimum, it's like, that's a big deal. That, we don't need to have these high expectations for ourselves and for our kids.
True. But so for my kids who are in high school, if they don't get 100% of whatever it is they're learning, it'll be fine. They'll get through life. It'll be fine. But if you're like learning to read or write, I feel like that could be a little bit of a problem now.
Yeah.
Because it's hard to get your kid to sit in front of that screen and do the work. I mean, that's not how a child learns. I don't think so at least. And then the things that they're learning in first, second, and third grade and fourth grade, they're like essential for, for
The
your
building
life.
blocks,
Those are the building
yeah.
blocks. So
Mhm.
that's where I feel like that's where I'd be nervous as a parent for my kids now,
Yeah, well, we're going to see like if it's a disaster we think it is, or if it's all going to be just fine. They're going to learn that stuff with or without the schooling.
Right.
I wanted to ask you. Oh no, I'm not going to be able to think of it. There's something about the fear. Oh, I know. I think that one of the other things that I see as a positive that is coming out of this is that we're being forced to become comfortable with the unknown. And it's not just the unknown, it's the unknowable. Like we do not have the capacity to know what's going to happen and how it's going to play out. And we just have to get comfortable with that. We have to. There's no other option.
Right.
But I think that, if you've been sort of doing this work for a while, like that's a familiar topic. You've been seeing that for some time. But if it's people who are just confronting that for the first time, like that is really rough.
It's awful.
Because it's not just the unknowable, it's like unknowable about really important things like health and well-being and our unity as a country and the economy. Those are some big issues.
Yeah. And like you said, when you've worked with those things for a long time, you do get comfort. It's still yucky feeling, but it does get more comfortable, and you do understand the duality, that you do understand that that's kind of what life is, to live within that, because it happens again and again, also with personal situations. Now it happens to be on a big scale with all of us now in general, but it is unnerving and unfortunately necessary, and I think that's why the rabbit holes exist to that extent right now, because everybody is online trying to figure out what the hell is going on. And that's all everybody's doing all day long. That's why everybody's engaged so much, why everybody's on Facebook. You're trying to figure out, maybe somebody knows something that I don't know. And that's but you rest assured, nobody knows what's going on.
And that the prior to this, like you were saying, I think that you were getting at that, is that the nature of life is not knowable. Like we do not know what the future is. So it's an illusion that we're losing, that's crumbling, the illusion that we know what's going to happen. And one of the things that I find that people will do because the unknowable, not knowing, is uncomfortable, is that they'll either look at someone else's life to see what the possibilities are for them, or they'll look into the past, into what has been, and extrapolate from that what is going to happen in the future, or at least to guess. And that practice kind of like cuts us off from anything that might be new, like completely new, like creating a new paradigm for ourselves, creating a new future for ourselves, creating a hopeful something that we will want to walk forward into. It's kind of, it's just like a habit.
And also, have you noticed that a lot of people try to, in these moments when it's really uncomfortable, they try to force things, right? They try to do. I see that all the time also with people who are close to me. They try to, in that moment when you don't know what to do and you don't know what is happening, you try to find some kind of a security by action. If it's right or wrong, if it hurts, if it doesn't, just action, like force. It's not power, it's force, and so you're not letting it happen, you're forcing something to happen, because at least then you'll know what the outcome is. But I think right now that's not working. That's not going to work for anybody. I think life is showing us that this time that's not happening.
Krista also said that she does a lot of earthing, that's a really great way to go. She also says surrendering to my higher guidance, anything I don't want to hinder me in the moment, allows me to breathe, releasing anxiety, fear, and adrenaline. And Matthew says, love simplicity, be in nature as it's conductive. have real conversations with friends, to be present, to listen to music that expands my center, eat light, fresh food. Hi to Sherry, and also I want to say hi to Elizabeth. Thanks for joining us, everybody. This is Still Kicking. I'm with Diana Schieke, and we have a few people in the house. Hi, everybody. Thank you for coming. And we're talking about rabbit holes and the nature of rabbit holes. So what do you think is, let's see. What do you think has been like your greatest learning from this period, this time period? And let me ask you first, how different is your life now than it was 6 months ago?
It's different in a way that, okay, there's one thing I've learned, and that's really different, is that, and this is just a personal thing, but I feel like, we're all evolving personally at this point, that I'm no longer searching. I feel like in my life, I was always searching for maybe my purpose in life and trying to find out what I should do here on this planet while I'm here. And I've noticed that I have no interest in searching anymore. And something tells me that will come or it won't. It doesn't matter anymore. I don't know what to do with that, but that's how I feel right now. And it's very comfortable and feels very right. It's more of a legitimate existing, and a no longer searching for my purpose. There is no purpose. That this is the purpose.
Yeah.
Just this is it.
Yeah, that's funny because I have a similar experience. But Jen writes here, the keywords that relax me, like you are just where you need to be, or whatever choice you make will be just right for you.
See, that's pretty much what.
Yeah, that's
what I was saying. Yeah.
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 So,
like you don't feel like you're missing anything anymore.
Yeah.
Or the world is changing, Kay. You got to get on the train. Where's the train? Where is the train? What train? I don't know. Don't miss it. Keep your eyes open. No. This time, whatever it is, you'll know, and it will happen.
Yeah.
You don't have to do anything. Yeah. You don't have to catch any train.
I've been experiencing something really similar in that I realized that like how much of me was counting on some future outcome, like that, oh, once we get through this period, then everything's going to be blah, blah, blah. We're headed to 5D, to the new earth, and it's going to be fantastic and wonderful. And it was that was keeping me from really being here now. And I was just like constantly, it was almost like a release valve, like I was, when things got tough here, when I didn't like what was happening here, I could say like, oh, I'll just pop over to the future where everything's taken care of. And I've had to kind of stop that practice, and I'm not, and that doesn't hold any lightness for me anymore. Like I need to get content with this moment right here. And so that's been sort of a big deal for me.
It is a big deal, and
Yeah.
it's because it's so subtle, but it's life changing, and it
Definitely.
changes your whole perspective, and also the nervousness or the pressure that you have to do your life right. That falls away, and just complete radical acceptance of just being.
Yeah.
And that's kind of new and exciting. And the concept, and we've spoken about these things for years, but to really feel it and to live it is a different story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jen said something similar. It's like you can't get it wrong.
Right. You can't get it wrong.
Yeah. Hi to Jamie, Suzanne. Nice to see you. Yeah. Wow, what a crazy time.
Yeah, a lot of also acceleration in my private life and my family life, in terms of a lot of things happening fast and at once, and drama, or what you would call drama. But I feel myself in the middle of the storm and the eye of the storm, watching things happen. And there's something telling me it's going to be okay. And there it is again, living with the uncomfortable. You don't know what's going to happen. You don't know how things are going to play out, and it's scary. But you're walking every day in those steps, having to navigate, or to accept that not every path is for you to change or do something about, right? Not
Yeah.
every life is for you. And so there we have it again with the doing. You have to do something about this. You have to say this to that person, and you have to go there and do that and this. But I find myself not seeing any real purpose in any of that, and any real gain for anybody.
Yeah.
And so often I do nothing, or I think something, or I hold still, or I hold space, or I hold peace, or I say something very subtle. And it's a different way of living now. It's not quite as barging in and moving things around. It's more of a holding everything where it is and understanding my place in it, maybe.
Mm. Yeah. You know, that makes me think about what we were talking about that we wanted to talk about tonight, and that is how to be with loved ones who are struggling, who maybe haven't been on the path, as you know, and doesn't have the tools, or is just feeling overwhelmed by the situation. Or how do you, for instance, like help your kids through it? How do you help your family members who are struggling, or what's your involvement with that?
So I have somebody very close to me who's struggling a lot with life, with drugs, with and all the things go um, that go together with that, and it's a lot. Um, and so that's usually something where, yeah, there's a lot of rules around that, how people should react, what they should do, which programs they should call, which facility, this, that, and the other. But those things are falling, in my case, falling away as well. Those are things that were made up 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago, and they have their place, and I'm sure they can help people, but sometimes it's not the right thing, and you have to figure that out and navigate. And so when somebody who's close to you has that path, and it is a path, drug addiction and all the awful things that go together with it, everything. It starts with criminal behavior and ends with hospital visits and the whole shebang, right? You have to, even though you're close to that person, you have to understand that it's not your way. And even though that has to stop, and this has to, and you have, but it's not always that easy. If it were easy, then we wouldn't have that problem, and we do have that problem. And so you have to kind of, it's like you have to accompany the person on that journey, and that's tough. It takes a lot, and to see that and to stay calm.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm experiencing now, that kind of that accompanying and trying to navigate the give and the take, the sharing, the heart, and the distance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I also feel like early on in this situation, I was fielding probably 4 phone calls a day and like with long conversations, hours long, and from people who were, I thought were like ready to step into kind of like leadership in in this situation. But I mean, that's not to say that that's they weren't, that's not what I'm getting at. But one of the things that I found, I still find in what you're talking about, is just bearing witness to somebody in their experience of someone without having to jump in to rescue or save or change or even support, just to just be there in that space with them while they have their human emotions. And that's kind of really what the podcast is about too, is just like hearing people's stories, listening to people, bearing witness. It's really super powerful, but it's so hard to do.
It's hard to do, and it's very unconventional, and could maybe even, start some critique. People wondering why you do what you do and how, but you can't explain it. It's just a feeling. You know what's right, and you know what's not right in your family, for you and for your loved ones. But yeah, I've never gone the quote normal path. And for me, it's always been rewarding when I did. Like we all say, when you do what your gut tells you, it usually turns out to be pretty damn good.
Yeah.
And how many times in your life have you gone against your intuition and then it was shit?
All the times. All the times I've gone against my intuition, it's turned out like that. I mean, every time, like my experience is like when I was speaking earlier about having that feeling of like the urgency of needing to like fill everybody in on my point of view, that even like as I'm sending someone an email, like I'm about to hit the send button and my intuition's like, don't do that. Don't do that. Don't send that. And then of course I do. And then it's like blows up in my face and I'm like, oh, darn it. Why did I send that?
Should have listened.
Yeah. Yeah. Every time.
Every
time I try, I want to, veer to one side or the other, or to just, tell people something that I feel they need to know. It just always backfires.
I'm lucky I have my husband. He's like really calm. So he always says, now wait a second. I'm always like, I'm going to do this now. He's like, just think about it for a little while,
Yeah.
But I'm like Scorpio, I'm going to do it now.
Yeah.
And that's often not a good idea. He used to drive me nuts with that, but there's wisdom in that. Oh yeah.
So I'm interested in knowing like if anybody out there has any like tips or ideas about how to help other people or what do you do when people come to you in struggle? Krista's saying that letting go of control can allow us to move into our heart intelligence. I love that. And one of the greatest things in life is being able to witness a loving listener. Yes, same thing. Oh, that's beautiful. Witness a loving listener. I love that. All right. Well, you guys have anything to add? Yeah.
How much of both of your individual past or conditioning have you, not how much, but what have you noticed now that you've significantly let go of in order to be present? And we were actually talking about this in the car before we got here. So you can be a supporter instead of an enabler. Because a lot of times I think our emotional reaction, physical, mental, spiritual is what we learned or didn't learn, or the aha moments you had with your father, that now you're like, oh my gosh, you were brilliant. What do you see now within yourself? Like how much did you take with you and how much did you let go of? So you could hold space for somebody.
So
it's hard.
Yeah. So Alexa's asking us, well, what conditioning and that we had to let go of in order to be supportive of the people that we needed to be supportive of. Is that about right? Without enabling. Oh my gosh. Yes. So
hold space without doing it.
Fine line.
Yeah.
It's a fine line. And it's one of those things that you can only really navigate with your intuition. And you're gonna mess up. And that's something you should never be afraid of. Just know you're on that path. You're gonna screw it up. but I always believe that if the intention is there and kind of like the prayer is there, then I've always been led on the right path. I feel like I've always been guided in a way that seemingly always turned out right. Of course, you need a feel for yourself and the feel for that person. And what I mean by that is, you know how you and I are empaths, so we both we both know how to feel other people, and especially for someone close to us. You've just got that connection. That's something I don't know I could do with somebody who I didn't, love and know. I think it's the connection, and it's definitely work for an empath, and it's not for the faint of heart, as you guys know. It's not for anyone who doesn't have the emotional, not stability, endurance.
Oh,
That's good.
emotional endurance. Oh my God, I love that.
Yeah.
I think that's a tweetable moment, but of course we're not on Twitter because we watch The Social Dilemma. um, so
My
one
dad
of the
would say you were supposed to watch that.
Yeah,
because it was on Netflix.
right.
Nothing's on Netflix that you're not supposed to watch.
Is that right?
Oh, yeah.
I've heard other people say that.
Wait, that what?
Nothing's on Netflix that you're not supposed to watch.
You're supposed to watch it all.
Well, everything that's on there
Yeah.
is very clear. There are millions of people are going to see it, and that you're supposed to. I mean, if you're not supposed to see it, it's not going to be on Netflix. It's not like, ooh, I found something on Netflix. PayPal. No.
I would say that the conditioning that I had to let go of most of all is mother knows best. And because,
Oh my God.
yeah, it's a big one. And it's fortunately, or I don't know if it's fortunate, but my children are older than yours. And I had to, have to continuously step back and not just observe them on their own path, but to really inquire what the path is, what exactly, to stay open and to stay non-judgmental and not place my opinions and to just listen. Again, it's just coming down to being a loving listener. But that's and especially like when it comes to topics that you think you're supposed to know more about. Like in the beginning, I told one of my kids, I was like, I've been paying attention to this for decades. For 4 decades, I've been paying attention to health and nutrition. And that does not mean that I know more than they do, because they came in with more information. I'm just catching up to where they are, So yeah, that was a huge one, but it also enabled me to come to a different level of understanding with them and to be in a a more beautiful place with them. Now we're on the same level and we're exchanging ideas. Well, they're not interested in my ideas, but I'm listening to theirs. So yeah, that's been a big one. But I mean, really, it's about thinking that it's letting go of the thought that I know more or better than anybody, because I don't, and that I have to remind myself over and over as I'm getting ready to press the send button.
I think we do it as a means to control our environment so we feel better.
Yeah.
It's letting go of that conditioning or that anxiety that we brought into it.
Yeah. So Alexa's saying that she thinks it's one of the ways that we do that to control our environment, and that is an aspect of codependency, where I wrote about that in my upcoming book, and believe it or not, a little bit, and that when I was noticing, when I was trying to step in and alleviate the suffering of whatever my children were going through, it wasn't because I didn't think they could do it on their own. It was because I didn't want to experience them experiencing that. That was too painful for me. And so that, I had to kind of shift that around as well, to allow anybody to go through their period of suffering is like, that is a holy thing to be able to do.
And that's a tough one because you can sometimes see it coming,
Yeah.
but you shouldn't do. And I feel the same way as you do, that I feel like I want to make sure that doesn't happen to them. But it's so strange that we're doing that all now, because I don't remember anybody doing that with me.
That's
I
true.
do not remember my parents stopping any kind of suffering in terms of the things that I would experience at school, the bullying and whatever it was. Now we're so very protective of our children, and I get it because I feel that way as well.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I wonder why do we do that and they didn't?
Right. It's like the pendulum has swung a bit far, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't mean to interrupt you. I just want to say hi to Robert and Carol and Nancy and Giovanni and Katie and Sylvia. Hi, guys. Thanks for tuning in. If you guys have stuff that you want to talk about, let us know and we will bring that up. But we're reaching just about an hour now. So is there anything else that you want to add that we haven't talked about?
Oh, I think I'm pretty good.
You're good?
Yeah, I'm good.
What about you guys? Anything you want to talk about?
I think something that just keeps popping in my head that was really huge for me is to just have a grateful heart and come from a place from your heart of gratitude and to look at all the blessings that we have every day. Because there's so much going on in so many directions, it's easy to kind of focus on the negative and focus on the scary things or the challenging things, but we're not really meant to understand everything. It's not in our human capacity.
Yeah. Everybody's going within and buying chickens.
So it's Sarah, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So I just want to say that Sarah wanted to add that she approaches everything with a grateful heart, and to make sure to make time to count your blessings and your chickens and
your eggs.
To really be cognizant and aware and open to what the blessings are that this time is wanting to bestow upon us, because we know there are blessings in every moment, right? Like we just have to like grab them or just open our eyes to
Like
them.
before, you're like, I'm home, I food, just those real basic
Socks, like the simplest thing, because it's getting chilly here now, so it's like
legs were like I can hold pencil, my fingers aren't. All those little things that when you injure something, you realize how much you need it, or
Right, the grateful heart for sure. Well, that is a perfect way to end our evening. So I just want to thank everybody for being with us tonight. It was so fun to get together with you and you guys and talk about this stuff. I will be back live in 2 weeks, and my guest will be Matthew Patty. You heard some of his comments earlier in this live stream, so it's always interesting with Matthew because he's super deep, and sometimes I have to like have a consciousness dictionary at the side so I can look up a few things when he starts talking about quantum physics and stuff, but it's going to be super fun. So that is 2 weeks on October 14th at 7:30. And Matthew is in Australia, so we will be on Zoom, but we'll be live on Facebook. And I also just want to let you know that we'll turn this into a podcast, and it will be available with the Alive and Kicking podcasts, which are on all the platforms and also on YouTube. And you can go to my Facebook page, which is keck.com, and you can find everything there. And I also wanted to let you know that I have a new book coming out, and I'm obligated to start promoting it, even though I hate that. And if you would like to be on the mailing list so you can find out about that, just go to keck.com and fill out the thing. So thank you everybody for being here. Thank you, Alex, for tending to the crowd. Yeah, thank you. Thank you, everybody.